Okay, so this whole AI thing, like AI is the new Cold War. Sounds kind of dramatic, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the stuff you sent over, I mean, it's pretty clear that this is like really serious stuff. We're not just
It's
talking
long.
about, you know,
Yeah.
robots taking our jobs or
Yeah. Oh,
self-driving cars.
it's not way beyond that. What we're looking at now is artificial intelligence is becoming like the technology of this century.
Yeah.
I'd say, in the same way that nuclear weapons were,
Yeah.
back in the last century.
Just like back then.
It's creating this whole new kind of arms race,
Hmm.
especially between the U.S. and China.
It's interesting because when you say Cold War,
Mhm.
most people probably think like big armies.
Yeah.
You know, who's got the most nukes? But this time,
Mhm.
it's all about information. Like who can process it the fastest,
Yeah.
understand it the best, and then use it to, I don't know, shape the world.
Exactly. And that's what makes AI so powerful. It's not just brute force. It's about intelligence itself, and whoever can, harness that intelligence, they'll have a massive advantage, not just militarily, but economically, even culturally.
So let's break this down a bit. For someone who maybe hasn't been following all the AI stuff super closely,
Yeah.
how would you explain why it's suddenly become this, I don't know, geopolitical chess piece?
Okay, well, in the beginning, AI was mostly about making businesses more efficient, automating tasks, things like that. But as the technology's advanced, it's become clear that AI has this potential to impact pretty much every part of our lives. And countries are realizing that. Whoever is leading in AI, they're going to have a huge advantage in shaping, well, the 21st century.
And you mentioned China and the U.S. specifically. What is it about those two countries that makes them like the main players in this AI Cold War?
Well, both the U.S. and China, they've recognized how important AI is strategically, but their approaches are very different. China's gone for a very centralized approach, like government-led. They've poured tons of resources into AI research and development, and they've made it clear that they want to be the global leader in this whole field.
Yeah.
There's actually a national plan called Made in China 2025, and AI is a core part of that.
Right, and it seems like for them, it's about more than just, economic dominance. They're also using AI to like increase their control over data.
Yeah.
And even their own citizens. One of the sources mentioned that China's using AI-powered facial recognition to track people's movements in real time. I mean, that's kind of unsettling, to say the least.
It definitely raises some serious questions.
Yeah.
About privacy and individual liberties, but it also shows just how powerful AI can be as a tool for
social control.
Uh-huh.
And then on the other side, we have the U.S., which has some of the biggest tech companies. Right. Google, Microsoft, Amazon. They're all making huge progress in AI. But it seems like the U.S. approach is
I agree.
a bit more fragmented.
It is. The U.S. has a much more decentralized system. When it comes to AI development, there's a lot of innovation happening in the private sector, but there isn't that same level of top-down coordination.
That you see in China. And that's leading to some concern that the U.S. might be falling behind. In this global AI race, it's almost like two different philosophies kind of clashing. China's got this very deliberate strategic approach, while the U.S. is relying more on, free market innovation. And from what I'm seeing in these sources, there's this growing worry in the U.S. that China's model might actually be more effective when it comes to achieving AI dominance.
No, that's a key point. It's not just about who has the best scientists or the most funding. It's also about how effectively a country can mobilize its resources and direct them towards a specific goal. And right now, China seems to have a clear advantage there.
So we've got these two superpowers, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, vying for control of this incredibly powerful technology.
But why should the average person care? How does this AI Cold War actually impact our lives? That's where things get really interesting and where the implications go way beyond just politics and technology. Because AI isn't just some abstract concept. It's already changing the way we live, the way we work, how we interact with the world, and the decisions that governments and companies make about AI today, well, they'll have a huge impact on our future.
I'm really curious to unpack that further. Can we get into some specific examples of how AI is already shaping our lives and how this competition between the U.S. and China might influence those changes?
Absolutely. Let's start with one area that's already being transformed by AI, the future of work.
Okay, so the future of work. I think everyone's got this image of, robots taking over our jobs. It might be more complicated than that.
Yeah, it is. We're not talking about like a sudden robot uprising. It's more of a gradual shift.
Where AI starts taking over certain tasks within jobs.
Which makes some roles obsolete. But it also creates entirely new ones.
One of the sources mentioned AI being used to personalize education, like tailoring it to each student's learning style, which sounds pretty cool, but I imagine that also disrupts the whole traditional classroom setting.
That's a great example. AI tutors could provide that personalized instruction, which would free up human teachers to focus more on things like mentorship and developing critical thinking skills, things that AI isn't so good at yet. That also means teachers would need to adapt to these new roles, and education systems would need to be redesigned.
And what about the economic impact? If AI is making some jobs obsolete, does that mean mass unemployment? Or will there be new jobs to fill the gap?
That's the big question. Historically, technological advancements have created more jobs than they've destroyed.
Right.
But AI is different. It's not just automating manual labor. It's also automating cognitive tasks that used to be considered uniquely human. So the transition this time could be a lot more.
And that's where this whole U.S.-China competition really comes in, right? Whoever can adapt their workforce faster, train people for these new AI-driven jobs are going to have
a major economic advantage.
Exactly. And it's not just about retraining workers. It's about creating an environment where AI innovation can flourish. China is investing a lot in AI infrastructure and education, while the U.S. is still debating what role the government should have in fostering AI development.
So it sounds like it's not just a race for technological supremacy, it's also a race to adapt to all the social and economic changes that AI is bringing about.
Exactly. And it's not just about jobs and the economy. AI is also having a major impact on
global security and how wars are fought.
Yeah. Touched on that earlier with the idea of an AI arms race, but one of the sources went even deeper, talking about how AI could make warfare more unpredictable and potentially even more dangerous.
One of the biggest concerns is the development of autonomous weapons systems, basically machines that can make life or death decisions on the battlefield without any human intervention.
That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But this is a real possibility we're talking about.
Yes.
Algorithms deciding who lives and who dies.
It's already happening to some extent with drone technology. But as AI gets more sophisticated, these systems will be able to operate with even greater autonomy. And that raises a whole bunch of ethical and strategic questions.
Like who's responsible if an autonomous weapon makes a mistake? And how do you even prevent these systems from falling into the wrong hands?
Those are just two of the many challenges we're facing. And then there's the issue of AI being used for cyber warfare, spreading misinformation, manipulating elections. These are all very real threats that we need to be prepared for.
So it's not just robots on the battlefield. It's about AI infiltrating every part of our lives, potentially even undermining our democracy.
It's a powerful tool that can be used for good or for bad. And the way it's developed and used will have a huge impact on the future of global security.
It's almost like this AI Cold War is creating a whole new set of rules for international relations.
It is. We're entering uncharted territory here, the old rules of
diplomacy and deterrence. They might not apply anymore in a world where AI is the dominant force.
And it's not just about the U.S. and China. This impacts every country. What are some of the ripple effects we might see in global relations as this AI competition heats up?
One thing we're already seeing is a growing divide between AI haves and have-nots. Countries that are leading in AI development are likely to gain significant advantages economically, militarily, while those that fall behind could become increasingly marginalized.
This could actually make existing inequalities between nations even worse.
It's a real concern. And it's not just about individual countries. We could also see a shift in power from traditional international organizations to tech companies, which are often at the forefront of AI development.
So the whole global power structure could be upended.
Potentially. And that raises questions about who's going to set the rules for AI development and use. Will it be governments, corporations, or some kind of international consortium? And what about the deep?
The potential for conflict.
Could this competition for AI dominance actually lead to war?
It's definitely a risk. Miscalculations, accidents, even deliberate provocations. They could escalate quickly in a world where AI is playing an increasingly important role in military decision-making.
So this isn't just some theoretical debate. We're talking about real-world consequences that could impact the lives of billions of people.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to understand what's at stake, and to start thinking about how we can shape the future of AI in a way that benefits all of humanity.
So where do we go from here? If AI is this powerful and the competition is so intense, is there any hope for
cooperation?
Or are we headed for a future of conflict and division? I mean, it feels like we've uncovered this whole web of interconnected risk. Is there any way, out of this AI-powered mess?
Yeah.
Or is it all just doom and gloom from here?
I don't think it's about finding a way out. It's more about finding a way forward. And looking at the sources you shared, I think they offer a glimmer of hope. It comes down to recognizing that AI is like any tool. It can be used for good or for bad.
So you're saying it's not the technology itself that's the problem, it's how we choose to use it.
Exactly. Think about nuclear energy. It can be a source of clean power or a weapon of mass destruction. Same with AI. It can help us solve some of humanity's biggest challenges: climate change, disease, poverty. But it can also create new problems if we're not careful.
So how do we make sure that AI is used for good, especially with powerful nations and corporations, all competing for control?
This is a tough challenge on a global level. We need more cooperation, more dialogue. We need international agreements on things like autonomous weapons, data privacy, and the ethical use of AI. It's like setting up rules of the road for this new technological landscape.
But to get those agreements, you need trust and a willingness to work together. And right now, it seems like the world is moving in the opposite direction, towards more nationalism, more competition.
True. But it doesn't have to be one or the other. Competition and cooperation can exist together. Think back to the space race. During the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union were rivals, but they still found ways to cooperate on some space exploration projects.
So we need to find that common ground,
Yeah.
even while recognizing that the competition is there.
Exactly, and it can't just be governments talking to each other. We need to include scientists, ethicists, civil society organizations. Everyone needs to have a say in shaping the future of AI.
I keep thinking about that image from one of the articles of a future battlefield where AI is making life or death decisions. If we want to avoid that, it seems like we as individuals need to be more involved in this conversation.
Absolutely. The more people understand AI, the more they can hold those in power accountable. It's about asking questions. How is AI being used? Who benefits from it? What are the risks? These aren't just technical questions. They're ethical and societal questions.
So this AI future, it's not set in stone. We have a choice. We can shape the outcome.
That's exactly right. AI is a powerful tool, but in the end, it's up to us to decide how we use it. Do we use it to build a more just, equitable, sustainable world? Or do we let it make existing inequalities worse? Do we let it lead us down a path of conflict and division? The choice is ours.
I think you've given us a lot to think about today. AI is going to be a defining force in the 21st century. And the choices we make now will have huge consequences. This whole AI Cold War.
It's complex and, honestly, a little scary. But I also feel hopeful that we can navigate this if we approach it with wisdom, foresight, and a commitment to cooperation.
And remember, it all starts with awareness. The more we learn about AI, the more we can participate in shaping its future. So, to wrap up our deep dive today, here's our final question for you to think about. If AI is the new battleground, what side will you choose? Will you be a passive observer? Or will you join the fight for a future where AI serves humanity and not the other way around?